this is much of a new self-sustaining topic, but when we were talking about Kurt Cobain being in there, it made me think of how, especially when Final Fantasy Spirits Within came out, all the talk was about how, in the not too distant future, we're going to be able to basically create, digital recreations of all these now deceased stars and famous people, and we'll be able to have, whoever the case may be, you can have, James Dean starring in a Star Wars movie or something like that. So I would imagine that as far as as the games go, that's only going to get worse. But I mean, what's happened with that? I mean, do you, as far as movies, and maybe the fact that Spirits Within sucks so much kind of like put a temporary end to that discussion.
Well, I think just like you have parts of estates representing the deceased members of the Beatles, you have Courtney Love who's in charge of the Kurt Cobain estate. I think you will see estates. And you already seen it. I mean, the Fred Astaire dancing with the Dust Devil, right? But that was a commercial, a limited, very limited, 30 seconds. That's
and
how
all
long
the
that
the
lasts.
Bruce Lee playing ping pong and with nunchucks.
Exactly. But I think what you will start to see at some point is actors who are, digitizing themselves and body scanning themselves and that kind of stuff, and basically leaving themselves. And you might even see something like where I can imagine, if it's not already happening, someone doing it, like where it's like, look, we'll scan you, we'll body scan you, we'll take a reference set of motion capture and have you record a bunch of lines of dialogue so that after you're gone, someone can basically, with the approval of the people you've empowered to be in charge of your estate, exactly. You could sell Pepsi. You could star in, Star Wars Reloaded, a remake of Raging Bull, whatever it is, and people will have all of that data and body scan to be able to recreate you. Of course,
let's take this one step further and say they'll also just like upload you to a server, and then you just do all your acting from there. Like Brad Pitt will never fucking die, and we'll never have any new stars because all the old stars will just be available, like hanging out in the world of fucking Warcraft all day.
That'd be
After
awesome.
that singularity, Robert, we won't be watching movies any longer.
But what I can't wait for is when, like, okay, so they have digital versions of celebrities, but what happens when, like, the full, body scanned, fully articulated model of Marilyn Monroe gets leaked on Pirate Bay, and somebody reprograms her with blowjob animations for Second Life 5 or whatever, and you walk around and it's all just like the hottest celebrity stars, like, having the dirtiest sex.
That was also part of the concern that came up around the time Spirits Within came out, because there was verisimilitude there. People were like, are you going to have virtual child porn that's technically not involving any children and other shit like that,
Yep.
Snuff, and I mean, just the horrible.
Well, look, I mean, as human beings, like, we're amazing and disgusting in equal measure. So that there's some animators at Square who worked on that movie who had the characters doing some freaky shit.
And dude, I want those to leak, man. I've been searching eBay for that.
And I'm sure that Brad Pitt diaper porn is only a few keystrokes away. But I
we
think
can only hope.
That's probably that makes a lot of sense. That's what the audience would be, because if you get to the point where you can put these actors in movies, it's like, why do it at that point, right? I mean, just so someone, unless someone for the person who's responsible for animating and programming and doing the performance is convinced that for whatever project they want to recreate this person, and that's nerdy in and of itself. But it's like, other than that, why do it? Why not just have some living actor? Is it like, it's not even really them, but there's your answer. You can get them in shitting their diapers.
It's because the classic works of cinema being made right now just can't be made possible without these celebrity actors. So, of course, years from now when they're doing like Transformers 6, they're just going to have to go back and get the actors and use, because they won't be able to find people talented enough to handle those roles,
There will be no new Shia LaBeouf.
Well, but seriously, the reason you do it is because that someone other than you. There's been a sunk cost of all of the money that's gone in to establish those people as stars and globally recognized icons, right? So if, like, Megan Fox we still don't know whether or not she can open a movie, let alone act, but we don't know that she can open a movie yet. And, she's been in 2 Transformers movies that have been seen by millions of people and have made like hundreds of millions of dollars. But someone like Marilyn Monroe, where a lot of money was spent years ago establishing her as an icon, it's probably, if you could do it, and if you're doing a movie where you're already going to say, hey, we're already going to be spending a ton of money doing digital animation and CG and all this stuff, it's cheaper to use her. If you have the assets to put it in place. And I think that's what you're going to see, is that it's sort of like what's more cost effective. Now, the downside of Marilyn Monroe and, sort of deceased celebrities is they can't end up back on TMZ because they can't drunk drive anymore. They can't get caught with drugs. They can't get caught, with hookers or any of that kind of stuff.
Strap on in Second Life, though.
And I'm sure TMZ will be all over that stuff when it happens. But I think that's the reason you're going to see the stuff. And then you look at, there will just be people who sort of say, like, look, the vision I have is, I need Marlon Brando at the age of 25 to star in my movie. That's the vision I have. Personally, I think what you lose is you have a bunch of animators, because it is human beings behind it. It's just a different set of human beings. You have a bunch of animators trying to bring Marlon Brando to life using his likeness and whatever assets they can find. I'm like, is that going to have the same kind of spark as the actor did? And I don't think that's possible.
No, it will for a while.
If that's what movies are going to be about, then I'm just not going to give a shit about movies, honestly. It's just not going to be something that I'm going to care about.
I agree. I don't think it'll have the same kind of spark, but it'll have a spark similar to that with like hyper realist painters when they first started working, or the same kind of spark that Spirits Within had. You can't believe that this exists, and then once people are acclimated to that, in the same way we are with modern effects shots, where it's almost backfiring for a lot of us. Like, I see it, and you immediately just identify, like, oh, there's an effects shoot.
I'm going to say that I don't actually think it's going to go this way. I think this was sort of like people in the 50s and 60s talking about, like, moving sidewalks and flying cars. I don't think this is the future. I don't think this is the future we're going to get. I think that, we're seeing people experiment and we're seeing the technology sort of go in interesting ways. But I think actually there's just always going to be movie stars. There's always going to be real flesh and blood celebrities, and that's always going to be the preferred way that we're going to seek our entertainment, because I think we're clearly already at the uncanny valley, and I don't think it's ever going to be overcome.
But why would you say that when there's, look at all the glut of remakes that we're seeing. Look at, an artist like, Girl Talk, where, sampling a bunch of people, some who may be alive, some who maybe not, and creating new music out of it. Why wouldn't people sample actors and sample performances?
Right, and some of that is awesome. And Girl Talk, he happens to be, an incredibly smart and witty and astute guy when it comes to these remixes, and they're very fun to listen to. But still, what I know I'm listening to is artificial, and it doesn't take and it still feels like a guy messing around with something I prefer in the original form. I don't want to stand completely Luddite here about it, but I do think at root, what we like is the real thing. I don't know. I just don't personally see it happening.
I don't know.
Do you guys all really believe
depends,
that?
It depends. Like, in the future, are games just, us sitting around having conversations with celebrities? Like, I always wonder, like, at what point do games become about conversation? Because I do think it could totally happen. Because that's what people love in movies, is, like, getting into a character and getting to know them. And I've played games that get close to that, where you can enjoy sort of having a conversation with a fake person that's all written, but
right. But we know this. But we know this from just empirically, that most people want to be entertained. They don't want to do the entertaining, right? They want to be told the story. They don't want to tell the story.
Although we were just talking about Beatles Rock Band, and I would argue that, you know, when you go to a Beatles Rock Band party, if you're playing, you're the entertainment. You know, everyone's staring at you. People do a lot more work these days. It's kind of amazing. It's like the kids who sit around making animated GIFs for their avatars on NeoGAF or whatever. You know, people are willing to spend a lot of time doing something that might not ever reach an audience beyond their few online friends.
Very true. Yep.
So, yeah. Weird.